Samantha. How are you?
Hi, Clarissa. Hello. Nice to talk to you.
And you. So before taking this role, what was your familiarity with Catherine de Medici?
Um, I didn't really know anything about her. Um, in life, we know, certainly growing up, about Henry VIII, we know about Cleopatra, we know about Napoleon, we know about Hitler, we know about all these people, but I had never heard of her. Um, and then, so when I read the scripts, I started to realize that actually she had permeated society anyway. And I did know that name, the Medici name, and I did know some things about her, but they'd come at me from pop culture. The Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, they used the mirror and that, the talk, when she talks to the mirror, the witch, the mother, the stepmother, and the poison apple. There was so much about her and her family that I did know, but I didn't know I did, if that made sense.
Yes, and you just taught me something I didn't know. So there we go.
Yeah.
Be-
Yeah.
and being British, you've had a lot of historical roles. And where does Catherine de Medici or playing her stack up against roles that you've played in the past?
Well, that's an interesting question because the roles if you like, the costume drama roles I've played in the past, Jane Eyre, Harriet and Emma, Sophia Weston in Tom Jones, those particular roles are fiction. These are based on novels. So totally down to the interpretation of the writer that's adapting it, but also they weren't real people. One might argue that Jane Eyre was Charlotte Bronte. It's a side of her that she's written. But with Catherine de Medici, she was a real person. So that's what's entirely different for me, is honoring the best I can the script, but also knowing the fact that she was real. And therefore there's a responsibility inherent in that it's all right kind of going, hey, this is a TV show and we want to share her story, but I also feel when I'm there on the set that was her home. I'm touching walls that she may have touched. I'm walking on the floors that she walked on, and I feel very kind of empowered by that, but also humbled by that.
Where did it film, by the way?
In the south of France and Italy. So we filmed in all the real chateaus, all of them. And they'd never let anyone film there before. So
Wow.
President Macron came to visit the sets because they'd not done that before. So, yeah.
Oh, that kind of gives me chills. That really
Yeah, yeah,
adds a
yeah.
layer of authenticity to this that I
No,
didn't expect. Wow.
exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I think we're used to, like,
And
in
the
the
dialogue.
UK.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and in the UK, obviously, we have so many stately homes and there's so many costume dramas that are made here that there's just 10 a penny. You go up the road and there's like 3 National Trust properties and, but for some reason, France has been very, very protective of those chateaus. So, yeah, it was amazing.
The dialogue and Catherine's strength give her an incredibly modern feel. Why do you think it works so well for this particular character to have that modernity?
Yeah,
That
yeah, I
word
know what you
doesn't want
mean.
to
I know
come
what you
out
mean.
right.
I know what you mean. I think that's the brilliance of Justin Haythe, is that, like, I love film, TV, theatre, and sometimes when I'm watching something, especially period pieces, I feel that I'm not connected to them. I feel that they're somehow not of my world and that I'm not invited in. It's like a tableau. It all seems very fake. The costumes are a bit, and fake, and everything feels fake, and it's like chocolate boxy, and it's like a show. And I don't feel that I can relate to anyone in a way. This, I feel, even though it is incredibly beautiful and we're very sympathetic to the locations and the costumes are extraordinary and very accurate, the way that Justin wanted to write the scripts, if you've seen any of it, which I think you have seen some of it, is that
Yes.
it's so that what's the point in telling a story unless somebody's going to be able to follow it? I hate it when you're watching something and it's all blah 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 blah, and you're like, what did they say? Or they mumble. I'm like, what? I didn't even hear you. What's going on? And where are we now? Because it it overcomplicates things. And it's like, no, that's not the show we want to tell. We want people to be able to follow the story almost in a way like you're watching something extraordinary like The Wire, where you're looking at layers of history, layers of stories, who means what to who and who is doing what to who, and how does that link back to the beginning? Because it is quite complex. But therefore, you don't need to be overcomplicated with the language. You don't need to make it just too waffly and too highbrow, because it wasn't like that, and it's not Shakespeare. So we're not trying to make it Shakespeare where you're like, I know I'm meant to like this, but I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people forget that the written word, like Shakespeare, for instance, is kind of a production in itself. And it wasn't how people just daily chatted amongst themselves, no matter the time period.
It's poetry, but also whether that was contemporary language at the time, you need to make it modern in your interpretation of it. And I think that so therefore, when we're playing the scenes in The Serpent Queen, it was really important for us that we knew what we were saying and that we understood what we were saying, and things made sense so that someone else can listen and it makes sense to them, because the most important thing is the story, and the story is incredible. And therefore we have a duty of care, I believe, to the audience. There's so much content out there. There's so much choice to watch stuff. Why watch our show? Why? Because this was real. This was a real woman that we don't really know about. And secondly, because it's an incredible story and it's not fake. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. What is the one thing that you take away from this? And why is Catherine de Medici important to today's world?
She's important to today's world because I think that in some ways she's been forgotten. And the way that we learn as a society is we cannot forget history. It's important to address history and say that was wrong, that shouldn't have happened. But we still need to know it happened. You can't erase history. And I think too many female stories are not considered important enough for whatever reason. And men historically have written history. They wrote the Bible, they write all these things, and women were not allowed a voice. They're not allowed to be front and center because or we're hysterical or harridans or witches or dark, because they're frightened of us. And, God forbid, back in the day, a young man stood up and said, actually, I owe all of this because of, all of my career, because of my mother or my sister. There's people behind the scenes that weren't allowed to take the credit. It was in the UK, it was only the 80s where women still weren't allowed, to own their own home or divorce. So I think this is important because of everything that Catherine achieved as a woman at that time. But let it not alienate the men. There are some great male characters in this and hilarious characters, so I think it's a real kind of sneaky kind of insight into this world. I really do.
Thank you so much, Samantha. It was great talking with you.